Welcome to my podcast, Extraordinary with Neman. My name is Neman, and I'm your host. Just in the last episode, I was sharing one of the reasons why I went vegan. And if you remember correctly, I said that I watched videos from what I called it PETA. Turns out it's PETA, People for Ethical Treatment of Animals. I had no idea that today my next guest is going to be a founder of PETA. And I'm so excited. So I don't want to waste another minute. And I just want to go immediately and say hello to my today's guest, which is Ingrid Newkirk.
Hello. Hi.
Did I pronounce correctly your last name? Because,
you did.
With my accent. Thank you so much for being here today. For me, this is like a dream come true.
Oh, dear.
I must tell you, because I learned so much from PETA about veganism and kind of shaped a lot my views and who I am today. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you here today in the pod. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I immediately want to ask you, what I do on my podcast is I kind of basically share a life story, right? And you are turning tomorrow 75.
That's right. Yes.
That's incredible. Happy birthday. That's amazing. But you, for a majority of your life, you were basically fighting for animal rights, and you're just having an amazing legacy, behind you for all incredible things that you have done. But I want to go back, all the way back when you were a little girl. Tell me where you were born.
I was born in Kingston in Surrey in England.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was born, there was already a dog in my house who took pride of place. My parents loved him.
Mm-hmm.
His name was Shawnee. And so when I was growing up, Shawnee was like a brother to me. I didn't know any difference because I didn't have any other sisters or brothers.
Uh-huh.
So he and I were brother and sister, and we did everything together. Mm-hmm. We even, when we went to my grandmother's house in the car, we both got car sick at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
My parents would have to stop the car and let us both out for a little while. So yes, I grew up thinking of him as the same as a human being.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's great that you already have that connection from a very young age. And where did you grow up?
Well, it changed.
Mm-hmm.
My father traveled a lot. He was an engineer, a navigational engineer. So we went to France and to Holland and all over England and everywhere. But when I was 7, we moved to India.
Mm-hmm.
So my parents lived in Delhi.
Uh-huh.
I went to school for a little while there, and then I was shipped off, as little girls are, because there's too much of a cocktail circuit in Delhi, and it's too hot in the plains. I went off to the everlasting snows of Shimla, and I was in boarding school there, which was just a horrible, horrible place.
Uh-huh. You don't like it?
We joked and we said it was like a concentration camp for girls.
Uh-huh.
Everything was so strict.
Mm-hmm.
The nuns, it was run by nuns, would hit you if you did anything naughty. And we had monkeys who would break into the dormitories and steal everything and try to bite you.
Mm-hmm.
And the food was terrible. There was a thing called pepper water, which is tamarind roots that are boiled, and they make a broth of tamarind roots, and they would put that over rice, and that's what we had every day.
And that was your food?
That was our food.
Oh, my God. What you said, the nuns would hit you. When I was in I told you I grew up in Montenegro, and it was similar to that. Our teachers would be allowed to hit us.
Oh, yes.
And even our parents would encourage that. We'd be like, if he's not good in school, feel free to hit him a little bit. Which, like, it's so wild over here when I tell my friends in America. They're like, what? I was like, yeah, my teacher used to, like, beat me up. So,
well, they had an expression in England. They probably have it here, but it's now so old-fashioned. And it was spare the rod and spoil the child. So you had to be disciplinarians. And my father was an extreme disciplinarian. And then I went to a convent boarding school, and they were outrageous in it. And I wasn't Roman Catholic, and they, of course, were Roman Catholic nuns. and they would bully me about not being a Catholic and withhold things because I didn't convert. And in the end, I wrote to my parents and I said, I want to become a Roman Catholic. My father drove immediately to the school to see what was going on. When he saw me, I was very, very thin. I was sleeping in the sick bay because I would sleepwalk at night. And there were big marble steps with no rails that you could fall over and fall down. And so he said, you're coming home with me.
And that's where you went then back to?
Only for 5.5 minutes. Then they shipped me off to another school in the very south. That one was in the very north, in the Himalayas. And they shipped me to the south, to Kodaikanal, to another convent. And that was marginally better.
Oh, so your experience there was better, right?
Marginally.
Okay, that's good. Okay, and I want to know what are the first moments when you're like learning about veganism, thinking about veganism, and you know your first reactions to like what people are doing, it's wrong.
Well, I always loved animals. I was drawn to animals the way some people might be drawn to art or something else, languages. I was drawn to animals. They called to me. I felt that I could understand them and so on. But it was very narrow for a long time. It was dogs, cats, horses, maybe, baby birds falling from the nest. Didn't think about what I ate or what my shoes were made of or how things were tested. I had no idea. And back then, there was no animal rights, nobody to tell you anything. So what happened was I became a cruelty investigations officer for the government in Maryland. So I would go out if there was a call of cruelty and investigate it. And one day I went to a farm. People had left. They had abandoned all the animals on the farm, including pigs and horses and cows. And all of them were dead except for one little pig. So I took this little pig out to the water pump, held up his head, gave him, with my cupped hand, some water. And he was just grunting and, very, very bad condition. And then I sent him to the vet. Going home that evening, I was thinking, I wonder what I have for dinner. And that was before microwave ovens. And I thought, this is good. I've defrosted some pork chops. And then suddenly I made the connection, is that how can I be prosecuting somebody for cruelty to animals to this little pig? And I know that the pork chops have come from a pig in a slaughterhouse. And you don't have to go to a slaughterhouse if you've got any intelligence to realize that's a terrible, frightening, pain-filled place. And so I stopped eating pigs and certain other animals.
So that's how you started. From the moment you were like, I've stopped eating pigs, and did you immediately made a connection with all others, or like was it gradual?
No, I wish. I was a very slow learner. And like most people, having loved, quote, loved animals, but eaten them and worn them and everything else, I realized gradually all the different things. And lobsters I stopped eating. I ate snails, and I stopped eating them after experiences, looking at them and realizing. And then one day, and I'm English, we always had milk in my tea. A young man who had been on the Sea Shepherd, going out stopping whaling vessels in the high seas, he came to my animal shelter where I was running the place. And he saw me put milk in my tea, and he said, "You drink milk?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "But you don't eat veal, do you?" And I said, "Of course not. I hadn't eaten veal for years." And he said, "But they take the calf away from his loving mother so that you can steal that milk and put it in your tea, and the calf becomes veal. That's how the veal industry was created." I had no idea until that moment. And so I stopped drinking milk, having dairy products, and gave away my leather shoes, and the journey began.
Yeah, that it's when people tell us that way, because I also remember my story. I first went vegetarian. I was like, okay, I'm not going to eat animals, but then did not make connection with the milk. And I think that happens for a lot of people, thinking that cow just gives milks because she's a cow. And people like, oh, but like if we don't drink milk, then what happened to it? I was like, it's for her child. That's what happens with it. And also, a lot of people think that cows are giving milk like all year round.
They
like
do.
They don't have to be a mothers in order to produce milk. So it's definitely maybe latest a realization that I had. But like once you realize that, you're like, oh, like I just don't want to be a part of it. And I also like what I think why people should quit dairy first, like before anything else. It's absolutely the worst to not just the animals, but to humans, to the environment. It causes so much damage that I'm like, I wish I could make a realization sooner. As you say, the slow learner, maybe I was the one too. But once you see it, you can't unsee it and unlearn it. And it's just, but this is why we do this and trying to educate people.
But there are three things really. And one of them you said is the environment. And it gets annoying to have people say, oh, I care about the environment. Well, you can't just say the words. There has to be an action behind it. And everybody knows that cows belch methane. And the number of cows we have is extraordinary. Funny thing is, not that funny, but in India, which is supposed to be the land of ahimsa and caring and, respect for animals, worship of animals, there are more dairy cows. I hate to call them dairy cows. There are more cows used for dairy than there are human beings. And that's really saying something, because everyone is so milk crazy. They want curd, they want, ghee, they want all these things. But it's health, it's environment. But the other thing is, a vegetarian cannot really, in good conscience, have dairy, because what happens? There's no retirement home for this dairy cow. Her calves are slaughtered every year. So she has that grief. She's artificially inseminated, which is rape. If you're against rape, then you have to be against dairy. So her calves are being orphaned and killed. But at the end of her life, what happens to her when she's run down? She may have mastitis or pink eye. She may be debilitated. She's not in good shape because she's not giving a lot of milk, or they'd keep her. And she gets kicked and prodded and electroshocked down the ramp to become cheap hamburger. So she's a meat animal that you are actually torturing for a number of years before you eat her. So vegetarians can't have dairy.
That's good. I love, and I want us to repeat that sentence for the people, that there is no retirement for the cows. That's. I wanted to go later into this, but you gave me kind of perfect insight to that. About milk, like I feel it's changing so much. And I spoke in a previous episode too about how I feel like the dairy industry is hurting so badly, which like that's one industry I'm excited about being hurt and hopefully shut down. But they're just pulling all of these desperate moves where like they're trying to like hire all these like lovely celebrities that we adore to convince us to go back to drinking milk. And they run this whole campaign about how people are being shamed for drinking milk. And they're like, people shouldn't be shamed. So it's seeing those commercials, that shows me that there is a change.
Yes.
It shows me how much they're hurting and how those are just really desperate moves. And you can tell. So in that sense, it makes me happy that I never wish a bad industry for anyone, but that's one industry that needs to die.
Well, one of the things that's fascinating is our government in the U.S. is propping up the dairy industry. They're subsidizing it. Everything from the vast amounts of water that has to be used to sustain a dairy farm to the fact that they are putting it in the schools. And in most states in the United States, if you have a child who's lactose intolerant, and most people who are coming in from Mexico and other places, India and so on, are lactose intolerant. And so they can't really drink milk. Their body cannot digest it properly. They have all sorts of upsets. But still, they have to bring a doctor's note to school in order to avoid dairy. Now, this is backwards. I think, if you look at IGF-1, which is in dairy, which is linked to breast cancer, you look at all the fat that's in milk. Even skim milk is so high in fat compared to plant milk. That's to build a growing cow's muscles and to have them spring up like a daisy. I mean, they grow so big so fast. These are not things you want to give to your children. You don't want to send your children down this bad path. But that is propping up the dairy industry too. And now I'm delighted to say in California and in certain other states, people are bringing litigation. They're bringing lawsuits against the school district to say, my child needs plant milk and my child should not be required to have dairy milk. This is deleterious to their health.
That's wild that they're basically forcing into them and the doctor's note, because I think we're all lactose intolerant. Just some bodies are louder, but some bodies are silently being mistreated with that dairy, and you don't see till it's too late.
You're right.
Oh, I'm having a breast cancer now.
No, you're absolutely right. Because, my mother used to have bronchitis really, really badly. She's gone now. And I was growing up, when I got to my teens, I started to have bronchitis. And I was eating dairy, drinking dairy, a lot of cheese. And cheese has casomorphines in it. And casomorphines, as you know, it's a morphine. It's addicting. So people say, oh, I can't give up cheese. I love cheese. Why do you love cheese? You don't love broccoli or apples as much as you love cheese. What is it? It's the casomorphine. So my mother had this terrible thing. I thought, I'm doomed. I'm going to be laid up in bed for weeks regularly with bronchitis. When I stopped having any dairy for ethical reasons, I didn't think about health. I've never had bronchitis since. It's been over 40 years. Stopped, just like that.
That's incredible. And I believe you, because I'm experiencing similar things. I used to have headaches. But what I also think is, you said, I started doing it for ethical reasons, but then it benefited you. I'm not saying just in health. To me, it's in energy too. I feel like after I went vegan and after I started practicing any sort of cruelty, even eating it's an absolutely cruelty, a wonderful thing started happening in my life. And I just think you attract that beautiful energy. It's not just for your health of your body, but for the health of your mind. And for it just, I would feel like I have a little more of a luck in life since I eliminated all type of cruelty with it. And I told you my restaurant is doing really well. There were 20 restaurants before me that failed in that very same building. Then the landlord's wife, an older lady, she cried about it, and she told the place was cursed and that there is something wrong with it. And then now I'm fifth year. They are already operating for 5 years. And she came to tell me the story and how she's so happy. She was praying to God that it's going to give a prosper to the next person that enters there. And I said, but think of this. This is the first time in 20 years that in this kitchen, there is no blood, there's no tears, there's no screams. And
there's no smell.
And exactly.
It's like the circus when they used to have elephants and bears and camels and so on in the Ringling Brothers Circus. The first time I went to Cirque du Soleil, I hadn't thought about this, is that there's no sawdust on the floor because sawdust is there for excrement. I hadn't thought about it. And there was no smell. It was just so wonderful. And it's the same with a kitchen. It's the same if you rent an apartment, if somebody's been in it. It's like somebody smoked. You decide you don't want the smell or you want the smell. But yeah, I'm so pleased for you that and for everybody that this restaurant is doing well.
Thank you so much. Yes. And that's what makes me happy. And what I say to people, like, just if you want a beautiful energy in your life, because so many people are spiritual, but they're still eating meat. And I'm like, how can you be spiritual and still consume that? Because isn't it about life? And if you want better and more beautiful energy in your life, you should eliminate that from you. I'm saying to people, you go to bed to sleep, and there is a part of somebody else's body inside of your stomach. And people tell me, ew! And I'm like, but is that not true?
It's true. It's true. I mean, we're animals. We think we're gods, but we're not. If you took Biology 101, we're animals, and there are lots of different animals. It's like race. It's not one is better than the other. They're just different races. And so I think if you are eating other animals, you're a cannibal. Or what I say is, it's a cannibal. But you take a piece of somebody else's body and you chew on it. There was that plane crash in the Andes. Do you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
I spoke about it too, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah? Oh, well, you know what I'm probably going to, the way I think, is that people were so horrified that these people stayed alive by eating dead people's flesh, people who did not care, people who their relatives gave the blessing afterwards. These people's bodies were of no use to them anymore, and they ate part of it to survive. People were just shocked. And yet people blithely go to the supermarket and pick up a piece of a cow's thigh or a chicken's breast, and then they stick it in their mouths. And I used to do that, and I didn't think about it at all. And now I see it, and I see what it is. My eyes are open to, oh my God, I can't do that. And it's like roadkill or something. You see ground hamburger, it's just as if a truck ran over your dog in the street, and there is this glob of flesh. It's flesh. Hideous.
I know. And as I said, you just the thought you're going to sleep in bed, like you finish your day or laying down, and there is somebody else's body inside of you. It's when people tell me, ooh, I can get so freaked out, but don't want to realize that that's exactly what is going on.
You don't want to be a graveyard.
Exactly. Oh, God. Yeah. Like, that's literally what body turns into. If you're eating meat, your body turns into graveyard.
And the animals come back to bite you with heart attack, stroke, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all these things, various cancers, especially of the bowel, the colon, the breast. I mean, that's all meat related. That's all flesh related. That's all from
But how is that ever? There's so many doctors that don't want to talk about it.
Because they do it themselves. It's an old habit,
Okay, so yeah, that's what I'm like not understanding. It's like there's so many people who don't know what caused cancer or things like that. And I'm like, how we don't know? Like, how we cannot make the connection that the milk was never made for a human, and human consuming something that their body cannot support. Why we don't want to think that is the cause of the breast cancer, which, like, there are now doctors that are signing a petitions for the country to put the label on the cheese causing cancer because they found a direct link. But there's so many people who are gonna deny that. Like I told you, when my father went vegan, like his doctor was not supportive of it. And now that he like stand up and it's moving and it's back to life, his doctor is like, oh my God, like a good job. But like so many doctors that will be like, we don't know what it's causing. Well, it's not broccoli.
Well, one thing is to remember doctors are just people, and people are people, and they have their habits, their conveniences, their tastes, what they've grown up with, the same as anybody else. But in medical school in the United States, there is not even 1 hour of nutrition training. There's a lot about accounting, bookkeeping, drugs, this and the drug salesman, the pharmacy salesman, basically live in the doctor's office. The doctor doesn't even know. They're just told by the pharmaceutical company, this is for this is for that, try this. You know, they don't do their research. There is such a volume of information about the link between diet that's full of meat and cholesterol-laden dairy and hormone-filled dairy and these other problems, health problems. they should be saying to you, prevention is the most important thing. Don't get it in the first place. I mean, yes, you could get a rare cancer, or yes, you could get something, you could fall off a cliff and break your limbs, but you can prevent the number 1, 2, 3, and 4 killers in the United States most of the time, 80 to 90% of the time, by not eating dairy, eggs, and meat, and by keeping your diet low fat. And they should know that, but they're busy playing golf. They're at the conference over there fighting for higher Medicare payments. This is what their lives are full of other things. And nutrition education, basically zero. I take my hat off to the physicians like the ones in Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, PCRM, 1,000 doctors or more, and they all understand because they've bothered to have a look. Some of them had strokes themselves. Some of them had heart attacks themselves. And it took that to get them to look like the movie Forks Over Knives. So good. And you have people there saying, I had no idea. I got into my 50s. Then I had, an angioplasty. And suddenly I started to do my homework. And then I figured it out. And now the whole family is going to be healthy.
Perfect. Thank you for mentioning Fork Over Knives. Guys, please check out the movie. Just incredible. So many other documentaries that are out there now. So give a look to those. I now want to talk about, when does your activism start? When is the first time that even you said to a friend, you should not be doing that?
Well,
and how does that progress?
My mother said I've always been argumentative. And so if I thought something was wrong, I always spoke up, from being a toddler, basically, and saying, no, that's not right. But I didn't have the understanding of many things that people have told me now and I've read about now. But the first time I did what you would call an activist thing, we had just started People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals.
How you started that, I want to know, from how you came up with idea and everything.
Well, we just started it, and fur was everywhere. Every little girl wanted to grow up and have a fur coat. That was the sign that you had arrived, you had become important. And there were fur shows everywhere. So we were showing people for the first time, hard to believe now, but they'd never seen a frightened animal in a steel trap. They had never seen footage of animals turning in circles endlessly on a fur farm, going out of their minds. And so we got the photographs, and I went up to New York to a big fur show, and I knew I wanted to say something to the people who were sitting there applauding, or were going to be sitting there. So I walked in I dressed very nicely, and I walked in with the band. And they'd never had a disruption before, so they didn't expect one. And I think the band wondered who I was, but they didn't say anything. And we went and sat on the stage. And they started to play, it's a money, money, money.
Yeah,
that was it, money, 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 money. And down the runway came the models. And as soon as the music stopped, I very nicely went up to the microphone and said, this isn't really about money. It shouldn't be about money. It's about, and I described the incredible suffering of these animals and the look in their eyes of fear as they're caught in the trap, and how they're killed. The methods are so cruel, drowning and poisoning and gassing and shooting in the head and all these things, and even stomping on their bodies when they're in the trap so as not to make a bullet wound. And nobody knew what was happening, so everybody was very quiet. And I managed to give this talk. My knees were knocking. I was shaking. I'd never done anything like this before. And a security guard came and took me outside and threw me on the street. But it was wonderful. I thought, see, they didn't pull out my fingernails. They didn't hang me upside down. I can do this.
Yeah.
And that started it.
And that feeling of I've spoke for animals felt great, and you just wanted to continue to do that. To explain to some people, and I also got familiar with that with a company in Canada that traps the wolves and takes them and makes them into jackets. They trap them in that, right? They got one paw in that, okay? And then they stay like that, alive, for days
Yes.
before they were found and then killed, or they die from like just waiting for be over there. And there were wolves who were found that they were trying to bite off their own paw so they can set themselves free, and that broke me into billions.
Mothers do that if they have kits or cubs or whatever the species is back in the den or in the nest. Raccoon mothers, they will all, they're minding their own business. They're going through the forest. They're so clever that they can eat without a supermarket. They can do medicine without a doctor. They build a home with their own hands, and here they are minding their own business in the beautiful forest, and bam, somebody has set a steel trap. The leg is caught. They can't get out. And they will pull, and they'll tear the tendons in their paw. And some of the mothers, particularly, it's shown, are so desperate after a day goes by, whatever goes by, and the snow is falling, who knows what's happening, and they will they'll steel themselves and force themselves, and they don't feel any less pain than any of us. There was a man in a canyon, you may remember, who fell into a chasm and got a rock rolled down and trapped him. And he knew he would die there, and he ended up cutting off his own hand. They have the same, the enormous courage, the enormous pain beyond belief, but they'll do it to try to go back to their young, and they will die of blood loss. This man ran into campers as soon as he got out, and they medevaced him out. The animals will die.
There's a whole movie about it. I've seen it.
Is there?
Yeah. It's what's his name? Franco. It's the actor. It's called like 128 Hours. I think that's
really?
how long he's been stuck in the mountain. It's amazing movie, but that's so good to make a connection with. That's like what animals are experiencing daily. So the next time people want to go for that Canadian jacket, they should think of this.
Well, Canada Goose has stopped using coyote fur, stopped using fur. We petitioned and campaigned very hard. We met with them, and they have agreed there's no more fur. What they do have, though, is down. And people think, that down feathers, it must be that, they're left behind when a goose makes a nest. It's harmless. I'll just go out and pick
humans
some
are that nice. Yes.
Exactly. But we also have footage. And these poor geese, geese partner for life. They love each other and they live together for life. They make us look disgraceful, frankly. But they are so gentle. And there is a time of the year when they can't fly, when they molt. And this is the time when they're rounded up. And whatever feathers are on them, they live pluck them. They pull them. Imagine your hair just being pulled out of your head. The same with Angora, with rabbits, is that they're tied down and they pull the hair out. So feathers down, no, we don't need it. We're not survivalists. We have all these polyfibers, these wonderful, incredible, high-tech, lightweight, warm, super fibers we can use. And so Canada Goose needs to stop using feathers.
It's a good that it's a step there.
Very good.
That the fur is gone, but absolutely, we have to go further. But there's so many options. Like you called me stylish today. Like everything, it's vegan. You see, so you can even be on top of not just warm but also stylish.
Very stylish.
And remain with no cruelty.
Look at Stella McCartney.
I know, right?
I wish I could afford. Well, if I could afford, I wouldn't do it anyway. But someone gave me a cardigan. I'm not allowed to keep a gift like that because it's too expensive. It has to be auctioned for the animals. But someone gave me the most beautiful cardigan. And I don't know what it was made of. Non-animal, she won't use that, but it had these metallic threads through it that were lavender and light blue, and it was iridescent. Her stuff is faultlessly gorgeous, and yet she won't use leather, she won't use fur, she won't use, it's just, there's no excuse.
Absolutely. Because like a lot of people who like love fashion, when I talk to like some of my girlfriends, they're like all into like designer bags and stuff. I was like, you can have all of those.
Everything.
Stella McCartney, for example, and just it's nowadays No excuses.
She's got now I think it's pineapple leather that she's using now. Cactus leather, mushroom leather, pineapple leather.
Even apple leather I recently got familiar with. And I was like, oh my God, like that's so impressive.
And in India, they use temple flowers that are thrown out at the end of the day to make beautiful feathery things. So I think a person who says, I like fashion, but keeps with the old survivalist things is like a dinosaur. I mean, we've got fabulous things today.
Yeah.
I mean, get with the times.
Like, I adore fashion. So it's like one of the things that like I do, it's just like always looking into some cool things and stuff.
Well, don't look at me then.
No. You look amazing. And yeah, but I'm also trying to be very friendly towards the environment as well, which so that's why sometimes I like limit my shopping and everything, but I do love fashion. And people compliment it often, and I'm like, it can be cruelty-free.
Well, one thing people say, this is like believing that a cow just has milk with nowhere for it to go, as if nature said, all right, have some milk, but if human beings don't take it, I don't know what you're going to do. It's the same with, we're so stupid. I mean, it's the same with, people say to me, but leather, leather is natural. And I think, well, it is when it's on the cow, but you're not wearing the cow. You're wearing what was cut off the cow and then treated with formaldehyde and these toxins, these huge raft of chemicals, things that are going to stop it from decomposing, because you don't want it like Lady Gaga's meat dress. That would decompose on her. She would smell to high heaven. I mean, who wants rotting things on you? So you have to treat the leather with all these chemicals. And if you took a pair of leather shoes and you threw them out of your window and into your garden, and you came back 10 years later, they'd still be there. Maybe a bird would have made a nest in one, but they'd still be there. So other things just disintegrate. They will not disintegrate because they are so chemically treated. A leather is chemically treated.
Of course.
It's not natural. Stop with the natural.
Else's body wouldn't last like that long. You know what happens to the bodies when they're dead.
So if you want it to be natural, then use it, put it on yourself, and let the maggots start crawling and let it see it.
Yes. I want to ask you more, of course, about a PETA, because PETA, it's the biggest animal rights organization in the entire world. So I want to know, how did you make that happen? And when you mentioned now your first protest, you said we. Who are we? And how did the whole thing started? Like how you came up with idea, I want to do this for the rest of my life.
Well, I think as I told you, I grew up liking animals, loving animals, but with blinders on, I didn't realize. And then I started to inspect laboratories for the government, and I ran an animal shelter for the government. And I saw in a cruelty investigation a fox caught in a steel trap. So gradually I saw this, that, and the other. And it's only because of my job that I was able to go behind the scenes and to find these things. And it occurred to me, if I, who grew up loving animals, hadn't a clue what was going on, factory farming, institutionalized cruelty to animals in massive numbers, then nobody else did either. And back then, really nobody else did. And so I thought, I have to start a group. I didn't think it will be huge. I thought, I'm just going to start a group, make some leaflets. We didn't have the internet then. And start handing them out and going places and saying things and trying to get other people to know they have choices they need to make if they, like me, care about cruelty to animals and want to stop it. So it was about that. And so it was going to be called, I thought, Justice for Non-Humans. And then I thought, I don't like the word non-human. It's like non-white or non-male. Or so it became People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. And at first there were 5 of us, just friends, people who worked with me who said, that's right, we believe that too. Peter Singer's book, which I recommend to everybody, especially that first one, Animal Liberation, opened my eyes, because I suddenly thought, it's not about longer chains, bigger cages, about, a pat on the head for the dog, about not putting a firework to a cat's tail. It's about realizing all the others, just like us, have love and grief, loneliness, pain. They want to live. They don't want someone chasing them with a knife. Why are we doing this to the others? It's only discrimination. It's only bias. It's only violence. And we're not supposed to like any of those things. So we need to stop it. So that's why we formed PETA, or PETA. PETA.
Yes, I want the negative way.
So we went to the first Ronald Reagan's inauguration. And back then there wasn't the security that there is now. Now it's like a war on the mall. But we stood in the parade and we had a big banner, red, white, and blue, patriotic colors, with musical notes. And it looked like the Frank Sinatra song, "Take back your mink, take back your pearls. What makes you think I'm one of those girls?" And it wasn't about animals at all in their minds. And we changed it so that it would talk about the animals. And someone on national television didn't realize that, saw the red, white, and blue banner, saw the musical notes, and said to the nation, "Oh, and here is," and they read out all the lyrics. And as they were stopping and realizing it's animal rights. And so people saw that on the news and they wrote to us.
And is that like the first time that like kind of PETA, it's like, being known, and how did the growth happen? Like, I'm just wondering, how did you came to where organization is today? It's like incredible. It's like, it's not just in the United States. Like you have like in almost all the countries of the world, and like you have it in different languages as well. And like, how did that happen?
Well, part of it was good luck, I think. But the other part is that we're not in this to make friends. It would be very nice to make as many friends as possible. We don't do things because someone will give us money to do them. We do things, if you like that, please give us money, we can do more of them. But we are led by our principles. And we've always pushed the envelope. We've always thought, if you tell people what they already understand, there's no point. You need to tell them, wait, if you understand this, think of this. Compassion isn't one small thing. You'll have a big heart. So look around you. So one of the first things that happened was we went into a laboratory in Silver Spring, Maryland, where there were monkeys being used in experiments. And when we exposed that terrible situation with these monkeys with their backs cut open, their arms rendered useless, kept in these small cages, the wire broken, living their own filth. Everything was horrible. We brought the police in. We had a search warrant. We removed the monkeys. We brought criminal charges. It was the first time in the country, if not in the world. And it made the front page of the Washington Post. And then people who, unbeknownst to me, in the back of their minds, they had always thought, there's nothing we can do. I'm not a scientist. I can't go into a laboratory. Maybe it's just a few animals being used for public good. We exposed it. And suddenly, out of the woodwork came all these people saying, I saw that. It was syndicated from the Washington Post. And what can I do to help? The magic words is, how can I help? And we said to everyone, here are the many things you can choose to do, from what you eat, what you wear. Everything. Don't buy a cosmetic that's tested in a rabbit's eye, So that was really put us on the map, and we've grown ever since.
Perfect. And I love that question of what can we do and how can we help? So that's your perfect person for me to ask this question, okay? So I do my own way of activism, right? And I want to get involved more. But I'm wondering, since like you have so much experience in this, and PETA has tried all different type of activism, I want to know, what do you think is the most effective one?
Well, I don't think there is one, because I think that you have to have a scattershot approach, because some things will appeal to some people and some things will turn them away. Other things will appeal to people. I always say to people, number one is never think, I am just one person, what can I do? You have a voice, you have hands, you have, social media is the most marvelous thing in the world, that you can call into shows, you can send information, you can post information up, you can put information on your social media and wake other people up. It's no good to just change yourself. It's not enough, because you've probably made all sorts of cruel decisions unconsciously, unthinkingly, to get to this point. You have to make up for all that at least, and then do more by give children some books about animals, show them some videos. If you are talented to go into a school and give a talk, if you are a teacher, learn the alternatives to dissection. You have fabulous models now, synthetic models you can cut up, take the organs out of the... Why anybody thinks you need to dissect a frog, I don't know, but we have a plastic model. If you are in a career, you will find ways to use that career, whether to give free things to an animal group or whether to advertise things for your local shelter, I always say, please feed somebody vegan food who is otherwise not going to try it, because tasting it changes them. Take them to a vegan restaurant, buy vegan packaged food, buy plant milk for them. That will change people. But I have on my website 75 things you can do for my 75th birthday.
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, that's amazing. Check the website. Okay. 75 things that you can do. That it's amazing. I love that you said that bringing somebody into a restaurant who normally would not eat vegan, it is a part of activism. And I agree. And I love, because I do that a lot. A lot of people come and when the restaurant won award best vegan restaurant in Chicago and things like that, people came just out of curiosity, to see what it is. And then I like talking to customers. And then they tell me oh my God, I've never eaten vegan food before, which is of course not true. They had an apple, they had a French fries, they had a toast, but they just think of oh, I've never had a vegan food before. But then they're eating, they're I cannot believe this is vegan and stuff. And it opens mind. And also there's so many options now. The food is so delicious. In this point, we're not even asking people to sacrifice anything.
No, there's no sacrifice. You can get vegan caviar. There's a product called Caviart. I was just in Monaco and I gave it to some people in the racing industry, and they were absolutely blown away. They had vegan cream cheese and Caviart on a cracker and just astonished. You can get vegan shrimp, vegan fish. I'm English, so I like fish and chips. I thought I'd never have it again. Well, Gardein makes vegan fish fillets.
Okay.
So, there's everything you could ever want. But, if you had to sacrifice a taste, it's a fleeting taste. Eat something else, you're no longer hungry. Somebody said, I think it was Philip Glass, someone said to him, it's so hard, which it isn't. It's so hard finding vegan shoes. And he said, it's much harder on the cow if you don't. And that's it. Think of them. You would deprive a calf of his mother's love, a mother of her child, because you like cheese. There's vegan cheese. Get over it. Just what kind of person are you? It's a choice between being kind and being cruel, making a cruel choice or a compassionate choice. And the world is full of all these choices now. There's no sacrifice anyone has to make.
I agree. And I actually did a collaboration with PETA, with your team. They've been amazing. By the way, shout out to all of them who I work with. It was an absolute pleasure. We did a video campaign together. PETA and Kel, my name, collaborated. And I personally was in a video. And the campaign was, anything you can eat, I can eat vegan.
That's great.
I introduce in that very 50-second video, I introduce the pizza, the sushi, the burgers, the sandwiches, the pastas, the donuts, the cakes, any food that exists. I cannot think of that I say, oh, there's no vegan version of it.
Well, Betty Crocker is such a household name in the United States. And people traditionally had the Betty Crocker cookbook. And then somebody has made a vegan Betty Crocker cookbook with every Betty Crocker recipe veganized.
Yeah.
So what can't you do? Don't cry me a river about, oh, it's so hard. It's not hard.
It's like, I so agree. It's like, it's not that you think it's like the easiest thing in the world. It also, it opens so much for you, because I feel like I was so much more restrictive with my diet, to call it a diet, before going vegan, because like I would eat like 3 different dead animals with potatoes and just like rotate that. And like now I'm eating foods I never knew existed.
Yeah.
And there is so much more. Like basically, like I'm now, I don't know, 7-8 years of like not eating animals. And I every time like I discover something new, and I'm like, oh my God, how much more there is. Like and just like I heard there was like a 20,000 different type of just mushrooms, which is like insane. And then of all the other plants, I've never heard of jackfruit before. Now it's like one of my favorite things. Like I want jackfruit of anything. Like learn how to make seitan. Learn like I don't know, like a tempeh too. Like so many foods. Like and fruits, like a dragon fruit I discovered in my because vegans are crazy about dragon fruit. Like, oh, let's make a smoothie, let's make that or this. So it is always something new. So I feel veganism is not restrictive. Non-veganism is restrictive, because you focus on 3 dead animals all the time.
Yeah, if I had stuck with my diet, I never would have wandered into an Asian grocery store and bought Chinese vegetables, which are so easy to cook with garlic and soy sauce and something. I now have found chrysanthemum leaves in the hot pot, the Chinese hot pot. They're so good. And there's, bok choy, everybody knows, choy sum. There are all these Chinese cabbages, and they're phenomenal. I never would have tried them. Now I love them.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's why I said, like, a door of veganism opens many other doors for us, and it's just that life gets so much better. You did mention now when talking about how the PETA grew, you said it was a part of the luck, and that's a luck I was talking about when you do a right things. The universe, the God, whoever you want to believe, points in your direction and push you ahead. And I also think that happened with my life, and clearly now with yours and your organization too, just proves that I'm right when I say the universe loves kindness.
Yeah.
And
kindness has to make the world go round. I mean, we can't just have violence and hatred and all these things. And anyone who is saying, well, people cut you off in traffic and they don't smile at you in the grocery store, and there's unhappiness everywhere, and people are just living their lives like robots. And I think once you start living your life the way you believe you are meant to live it, that you are true to your own values, you think you're a kind person. I mean, who walks around, unless they're a psychopath, saying, yeah, I'm a cruel person? I mean, you think you're a decent, kind, compassionate, understanding, respectful person. So there you go.
Like, it's the opportunity to show us that.
Yeah. And never be silent. I mean, that's the other thing that I meant to say before, is that people are afraid to use their voices. And why? You're going to be on your deathbed looking back and think, I should have said something. Someone was being unfair, or they were being biased, or they were ordering the chicken salad, and I could have said, by the way, do you know that there's a fabulous alternative to that? Or did you know how the animals are killed for that coat? You can say it respectfully and nicely. Nothing bad is going to happen to you. The worst is someone can say, mind your own business. Fine, but at least you planted a seed. And that's not going to kill you that someone said, mind your own business, or I don't want to know. But you've done something with your life, with your voice. Your voice isn't on a shelf somewhere back at home. You're taking it with you and using it to help this world be a better place.
I'm so glad you didn't mind your own business, and PETA in general does not mind just their own business, but go and do a lot of incredible things. What are some of your favorite victories? Because like I always love when you guys announce like another victory for us, like this is what we have done. Like what felt like the biggest for you? And
well, the Silver Spring Monkeys thing, because it was a breakthrough case, because it was the first time that there had been a search warrant, the first time a case had gone up to the Supreme Court, the first conviction, the first confiscation of animals. That was so big. And I was really deeply emotionally upset because I knew each one of those monkeys. 17 of them came out of that lab, and I know them all by name, and I know their characteristics, and I know their pain. One kept rocking back and forth because his back hurt him so much from a faulty surgery. He'd never had a painkiller in his entire 4 years in the lab. So that was big. Also big for me was stopping all the motor car companies in the world, all the automotive places, every single one of them worldwide, from taking baboons and pigs and smashing them at high speed into a wall to record what happened at different speeds and different angles. And we tried everything. We tried to meet with the company. We were very nice. And we had to escalate that campaign. So bit by bit, we were locking ourselves to the steering wheels in auto showrooms. In the end, our members were giving us their old cars, and we were setting fire to them outside dealerships. And eventually, I think they thought, I don't know what's next. And so they changed. And now you see mannequins on TV in the commercials, and they've got sophisticated computers programmed with human data. That was a victory that I felt was very important. Anything that happens to animals in laboratories, because they're locked away, you never see them, and they can sit for 8 years with an electrode in their head in a steel box for no good reason whatsoever. Not that it would ever be acceptable to do that to your next door neighbor or somebody. These poor animals have just a terrible, terrible, painful, stressful life. So those two are my biggest. Head injury, we stopped the head injury experiments at the University of Pennsylvania. That was big.
That's good. And there was, I would say, an iconic picture of you. What you have done was in some slaughterhouse and somewhere where you were hanging next to the dead bodies of the animals to show that we are not that much different. Tell me, where was that, and how did that happen?
That was at Smithfield's in London. It's a big meat market, famous meat market in Covent Garden. And a reporter said to me, well, I'd rather go naked than wear fur. You've got that campaign. You've been known to march down the street with a banner with nothing on and so on. And she said, I would like to take your picture standing on someone's desk in your office naked. And I said, no, there's no point in that. It's like Lady Godiva. You take your clothes off for a political reason or for some purpose. I don't just do it. And so I said, if you want a picture, then let's go down to the meat market, to Smithfield in London. And I will, if you can arrange it, I will hang on a meat hook next to the pigs. And there were decapitated pigs' bodies. The color of their skin was the same exactly as mine. You can't differentiate between our skin. So I took my clothes off and hung from the hook. And it was just the most poignant moment to know that they were all dead simply because someone had thought they were different. But we are the same, sisters under the skin, and sisters in the skin. I mean, we were really indistinguishable, except they had hoofs and I had toes. And they had lost their heads cut off, and my head was there. But yeah, it was very moving, and I hoped that it would get people to think that, what is the difference between us? Why are you petting the dog and eating the pig, or you're saying hello to me and you're causing this chicken to be kept in a cage for 3 years to produce eggs for your breakfast? You know, it's not right. Any fool can see it's not right.
I adore campaign. I would rather go naked than wear fur. One day I'll do it, okay?
Well, you can't do it anymore. You have to do I'd rather go naked than wear leather.
Okay. Yeah, because the fur is dead, right?
Fur is so dead.
We are done with that. Okay,
Finished.
Well, I will be on time with I would rather go naked than wear leather. I absolutely agree. How I find out about actually that campaign was like one of the early moments when I was getting familiar with the PETA. Me being in Montenegro, we are very close with Serbia. And like we listen to their music and like we just very follow because we speak same language. So there's a Serbian pop star called Jelena Karleuša. She was the first person that I knew of. Like, I know she wasn't the first who did it, but the first that I knew of, she did incredible photo shoot with a PETA Deutschland, I believe,
Yes.
PETA Germany or something like that. Incredible photo shoot where she was completely naked, just her hair was covering her, and it said, "I would rather be naked than wear fur." And I was like, "Oh my God, like this is so wonderful." So, and then later on, I've looked from all the other people who have done it. It's, as you know, I'll do it.
Yes,
with the letter.
we just retired that campaign a few years ago because we thought, young people would rather be dead than wear fur. I mean, they think it's disgusting, as it is. And then leather is just hairless fur. I mean, it's you taking whatever was on the animal's back and putting it on your back, or making a couch or a bag out of it. It's just, it's inexcusable.
It's but the good to know that, like, at least that step of, like, I feel it's really, I know, like, in LA, it's even illegal to sell it. Like, it's completely banned, and, like, a lot of other...
Like foie gras. But also some of the European, especially the European fashion shows, and Denmark and so on, they won't have leather anymore. And they won't have exotic skins. I hate the word exotic skins. It just means some poor crocodile or alligator who's been raised in a pit of their own filth, and then they've had their backs ripped open while they've been alive. That's what's exotic. Why would you spend thousands of dollars to have a watch strap or a purse that's made from this poor animal? So we say, filthy rich or just filthy, and we show the pictures of the crocodiles in their pits because they raise them in pits.
But speaking of the things that yet need to be achieved, right? What are some things that you're looking forward to, and what are the battles that we still have to go through?
Well, I ask people, it may be difficult in your own mind to do it, but it's not difficult really. Our representatives, people often have lost faith in their representatives, their members of Congress and so on. But we need to push them hard because they control the budget of the National Institutes of Health. And NIH, it just last week, they were before Congress talking about how the top people at NIH simply sign off without looking to see if there are any regulations. They give money, taxpayers' money, overseas to places like the lab in Colombia we just shut down, which for years has been getting millions of dollars from the government and has used little marmoset monkeys, some of them very, very ill, and they haven't been doing anything. So nobody even looked to see if they were doing any research. They're in some makeshift cages in the jungle. So all our money is being given by the NIH, millions upon millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars over time, to these people who nobody is tapping them on the shoulder to say, you're using 500 animals a year. You're causing them enormous pain. You're putting things in their heads. You're frightening them. You're keeping them in cages. We don't have a cure for the common cold. What are you doing? And we need to, now we've got organs on a chip, human organs on a chip. We have a human brain you can grow in a petri dish. We have human DNA on the internet. High-speed computers, you program with human data. Why are you putting animals in cages and force-feeding them? And there are millions and millions of animals used in this country alone every year. So what's going on needs to stop, need to use technology, need to use AI, need to use modern methods of research, and need to stop using animals. And that's the number one battle I want to see won, because veganism is happening. Clothing industry, definitely happening. It's changing. But experimentation is so secretive, and yet it's so vile and insupportable that I want people to talk to their representatives and say, stop giving money to NIH to torture and kill animals. There is no excuse. It's 2024.
I agree with you, and I love that there is a clear call to action that we're talking about now, so people know what to do. I do want to ask you, you're in Chicago right now. What is going on in Chicago? There's also going to be some campaign with the picture of the pigs, or tell me about that.
Well, we have a new truck. We've always got these things. We've got a chicken truck called Hell on Wheels.
Hell on Wheels.
Hell on
That's
Wheels.
what it's called. Oh.
And what these trucks are, and tomorrow I'll be driving a pig truck around Chicago. There are no real pigs in it, but if you see it coming down the road, you think there are, because there's a soundtrack of the real sounds of the pigs squealing in agony and squealing in panic. And all the sides of the truck are covered with photographs as if it's a truck. It's got the slats and the pigs looking out and the pigs lying down, pigs drooling. And so I'm going to be driving that through what was the stockyards long ago, when Chicago was known as the butcher to the world, as if that was something to be proud of. And I'm going to be giving out vegan ham sandwiches here and there so people can see, oh, this is very nice. But the truck, I'll be taking it around to various hot dog places and they're parking it outside. And people will hear the sounds. They'll come and they'll look. And then there's a
While
sign.
they're eating what they're not supposed
Well, hopefully they won't go in.
So.
But on the side of the truck, it says, if this upsets you, please go vegan. And here we give out free vegan starter kits, which anyone can download from our website, the Vegan Starter Kit anyway.
That's amazing campaign. I really like it. And I think it's very effective. Towards the end of our conversation, I hope somebody who is non-vegan watched this, right? And I hope it made them make a right decision. But I do want to also focus on the vegans that they're watching us. And sometimes there's like a lot of division in our own community.
Human beings.
Okay, that is true. But I want to ask you about that, like what we can do better as a community. And what do you say to people who, like, I often have people, oh, I don't like that what you did, or will often criticize PETA for certain campaigns that they thought were not good enough while they're not doing anything. So, like, what do you say to those people? How we as a community, like, we already went vegan, how can we be better towards each other and, like, work more towards our collective goal of turning the planet vegan?
Well, I think one of the things that those of us who have seen what happens to animals and who care about animals tend to understandably be annoyed or disappointed in our own species. And so if someone, especially someone close to us, it's the same with your family. You know, it's a real slap in the face when your family doesn't listen to you. And usually your family doesn't listen to you for a long time. So I think it's difficult when people, you think we're in the same community, but they're not one singular mindset. And being tolerant to those people who are actually doing anything at all to help is a wonderful thing. No one is perfect. The Buddha wasn't perfect.
Exactly.
You know, Dalai Lama isn't perfect. I mean, nobody is perfect. But how to be grateful that anyone is taking any action to help animals, I think is the mindset we need to have. 1 hour or one thing said or one thing done. You know, don't just like, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. And, oh, well, I think that's just a waste of time. Or this campaign isn't a priority. Somebody's doing something. A group is doing something. An individual is doing something. That's the thing to concentrate on. Thank you for doing something. Because most people aren't doing anything, as you say, or a lot of people just don't care and they're doing the wrong thing. So how nice that you know someone who may not share your political views, may not share your dress sense, but they care as you do about animals and they're doing something. Maybe not what you're doing, but something. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. I also do want to mention that besides that you're going to be driving that truck around Chicago tomorrow, you're also hosting a wonderful dinner that it's all together, what it's called, right?
All together now.
All together now. Okay, I
like the
that.
Beatles.
And yes, and it's actually a tour, right? It's not only in Chicago. You're going to go to the multiple cities, and that's a part also of your 75th birthday, right? So it's happening in Chicago in one of my favorite restaurants, the Spirit Elephant, which makes me really happy. And I will be there, and I'm very excited for that. For the end, I do also want to ask you if there's anything that I didn't ask you, but that you would like to say. What would be your message to everyone listening to us today?
That's very kind of you to ask. I think the message is don't be intimidated. Use the talents and the voice that you have always, that you're an important person. You have the power of the purse. There's no point in, well, at some point, but you give, $10, maybe $100 to an organization. They need it. They're grateful. Thank you. But then you spend thousands of dollars a year on things that are hurting animals, from clothes to food to cosmetics to household products. Don't do that, please. It's much more important you give nothing at all, and you just don't buy those things. Don't support the companies that are cruel. You wouldn't go out and knock a little gentle sheep down. They're prey animals. They're frightened. And then take the clippers and hit them in the face when they struggle and cut off a little piece of their ear because you're working fast. You wouldn't do any of that. And so don't buy from the people who are doing that and are making money from your purchases. So use the power of the purse. Use the power of your voice. Never be silent. And always remember, you are an important person in this fight. And educate to liberate. Tell other people. Show other people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute honor for me to have a conversation with you. You're just really, really inspiring, and everything that you have done for the animals. I say thank you, but I'm sure all the animals are saying thank you. And a lot of us support you and love you, and we will keep fighting.
Thank you very much for all you do, and everybody who's listening, do something. Thank you.
Yes. Ooh, guys, what a conversation, what an episode, a lot to take from, a lot to learn. I really, as it made me almost cry multiple times. Like, I also enjoyed it because I know there were some powerful words that can hopefully help somebody. Make sure to do something, stay connected with us. Make sure to follow PETA on Instagram. Make sure to follow Kill My Name on Instagram so you can see when that I Would Rather Go Naked Than Wear Leather campaign comes out, because you don't want to miss that. I thank you for tuning in today, and I cannot wait to see you the next time. I love you all. And remember, if anybody ever tells you that you are too much, you will tell them to go and find less.